I'm 78 years old. Most people think they know who they are by this age. I only figured out who I wasn't. I spent 50 years doing what was expected of me, and by the time I realized it wasn't my life, there wasn't enough time left to build another one. I'm not telling you this to sound wise. I don't feel wise. I'm telling you because when you reach this age, honesty starts to feel more important than dignity. You stop trying to look good in your own memories. You just want them to be accurate. These days, my mornings are quiet. Too quiet. I wake up before the sun, not because I'm disciplined, but because sleep doesn't hold on to me the way it used to. I sit at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee that I rarely finish, and I think about how this room used to be louder. Not happier necessarily, just louder. More life is moving through it. Time feels different now, not faster, heavier. Every day feels like something you hold carefully because you don't know how many are left and you know there aren't enough to waste pretending anymore. When I was younger, I thought I knew who I was. Or maybe I thought I would figure it out later. That's probably closer to the truth. In my 20s, I did what made sense. That's how it always starts. I took the job that paid well enough. I listened to the people who told me to be practical. My parents meant well. So did my teachers. They weren't trying to steer me wrong. They were just passing along the same map they'd been given. I wasn't unhappy. That's important to say. I wasn't miserable or trapped or desperate to escape. I was comfortable, and comfort can be very convincing. I told myself there would be time later to explore the parts of me that didn't quite fit, the interests that felt impractical, the opinions I softened so I wouldn't stand out too much, the choices I delayed because they might disappoint someone. Later always felt reasonable. Later felt responsible. In my 30s, life filled up quickly. Work took up more space. Relationships required more energy. There were expectations now, not just suggestions. I learned how to be dependable, reliable, easy to count on. People liked me for that. They trusted me. They praised me, and every bit of that praise quietly pushed me further away from myself. I started measuring my days by what needed to be done instead of what felt meaningful. I answered questions the way people expected. I laughed at things that weren't funny to me. I stayed silent more often than I should have, not because I was afraid, but because it was simpler. None of this felt like a sacrifice at the time. It felt like adulthood. By my 40s, the shape of my life looked solid from the outside. Career. Routine. A sense of having arrived somewhere. Inside, though, there was a small, persistent feeling I couldn't quite name. Not pain, more like absence. Like a room in a house that never gets used, but you still pay to heat. I told myself this was normal, that everyone felt this way, that this was just what it meant to grow up and move on. The cost didn't arrive all at once. It never does. It came quietly, through things I didn't notice while they were happening, conversations I postponed because I was tired, opinions I swallowed because it wasn't worth the discussion, dreams I referred to as phase or someday, until they stopped feeling real enough to mention. I missed moments without realizing they were moments. Birthdays I attended in body but not in presence. Evenings when my mind was already at the next obligation instead of where my feet were. People adjusted to the version of me I showed them, and over time, that version became the only one anyone knew. I don't remember exactly when I stopped asking myself what I wanted. I just know that at some point, the question stopped coming up. The turning point didn't arrive with fireworks. It rarely does. For me, it came with a phone call in the middle of an ordinary afternoon. A doctor's voice, calm and practiced, explaining something about my heart. Tests. Words like serious and manageable are used in the same sentence. I remember sitting there after the call ended, phone still in my hand, noticing how normal everything looked. The same desk, the same calendar on the wall, the same list of things I was supposed to do next. And for the first time, it occurred to me that I might not get another chance to live differently. Not dramatically, just honestly. Recovery gives you a lot of time to think. Too much sometimes. I replayed my life the way you flip through an old photo album. Not just the big events, but the spaces between them. What struck me wasn't what I'd failed at. It was how often I'd chosen the safe answer over the true one. How often I'd mistaken being agreeable for being good. How many decisions were made to keep things running smoothly, even if they weren't running toward anything that felt like mine. Some things can't be fixed once you see them clearly. Relationships that adjusted to your absence don't always know how to welcome you back. Paths not taken don't wait politely while you catch up. There are people I wish I'd been braver with. Not kinder. Braver. People who knew me as dependable, but not as real as I could have been. I don't blame anyone for this. That's important too. No one forced me into this life. I walked into it willingly, one reasonable choice at a time. Now, at 78, the margins are smaller. Energy is limited. Time is not something you plan far ahead anymore. I've made peace with many things. I've found quiet satisfaction in small moments. I've learned to sit with myself without needing to perform. But there are parts of me that never got their turn. And that knowledge doesn't shout. It settles. If you're listening to this and you're younger, I'm not here to warn you or instruct you. I don't know your life. I don't know your responsibilities. I only know this. Living someone else's life doesn't always feel wrong while you're doing it. Sometimes it feels like success. Sometimes it feels like stability. Sometimes it feels like love. You usually don't realize what it costs until the bill comes due, and by then, paying it looks very different from what you imagined. I have years behind me that I'm grateful for. I also have years that belong to a version of me that never fully showed up. Both can be true. I don't have a dramatic ending for this. No sudden redemption. No late-life reinvention that makes everything balance out. I have today, and tomorrow, if I'm lucky, and the understanding that the life I lived was real, even if it wasn't entirely my own. If this story means something to you, sit with it. You don't have to act on it right away. Just don't forget it, the way I forgot myself. That's all I wanted to say.